Hello and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Friday, September 28th, 2018, and this is episode 74. My name is Carol. I'm known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry. Show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog and also in the episode thread in the Ravelry group. If you'd like to get in touch, you can do so via private message on Ravelry, by leaving a comment on YouTube, or by leaving a comment in the group. Thanks to all of you who reached out this week. It's always great to hear from you. Hello, welcome to this beautiful sunny but windy day here in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada, about 60 miles or 100 kilometers east of Vancouver. We've had a glorious week. Sunshine, warm temperatures up as high as the mid-20s. It's just been wonderful. This is the best of fall. The colors are all starting to change in the trees, and it is just lovely. And of course, we've had the full moon earlier this week. It was just spectacular. Unfortunately, the weather is going to change again. I think starting Sunday, I think I heard, maybe back to rain, but can't complain. It's been such a lovely, lovely week. I have a couple of finished projects to share with you this week. I also have a couple of works in progress, and I'll tell you what I've been reading and talk about what's been going on this past week here in my household. So let's get going. My first finished project I'm going to show you is Planting Seeds by Helen Stewart, which is the fourth shawl, I think. Yes, fourth shawl in the Shawl Society 3 collection, which is based on The Secret Garden. So here it is. I was almost finished last week. I was into the last stripe of it at the bottom there. So I'll tell you about the yarns, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the knitting. So the yarn I used for throughout is Louette Gems Fingering, and this white is called Pure White, the blue is called Neptune, and then the dark gray is Charcoal. It is extremely long. I'll give you a drive-by. Starting here, and then almost a whole other wingspan this way. It's actually, if you look at the original pattern, it actually looks fairly long in the back, like waist length, and it definitely is long in the front too. I don't know what was up with my gauge on this one. I haven't actually measured the actual gauge after blocking. The original shawl is knit in a lace weight / light fingering yarn using a 4mm needle, and I ended up using a 3.75. I thought I had done it on a 4, but it was 3.75 because I did want some drape. Actually, I should just verify that. I'm pretty sure that's what I used. Yes. And but what I found is that after blocking, it is not as long as I thought it would be, this depth-wise. And it is much longer than the width-wise than the finished sample was. I definitely used more yarn as far as length goes, and in fact, I had to cut out, I think it turned out to be 3 rows of the last stripe here because I was going to run out of yarn. In the end, after doing the picot bind off, this is what I had left. Less than, probably about 1.5 meters. So you can see I was cutting it very close on the shawl. So I'm not quite sure why that worked the way it did. I'm not sure why I didn't get more depth and less width, but it is very, very long. I could wear it kind of like, I was kind of fiddling with it earlier. I could get away with wearing it kind of like this. I tied up the ends. That's not so bad, except that it rides up on my shoulders. I noticed that earlier too. If I wear it just wrapped around my shoulders, I'll turn around. You can see it's not really long. It definitely does not reach my waist. And then the ends are super long. They go down, if I just have them like this, they go almost to my ankles. So I'm not likely to wear it that way. I could, in theory, loop it around the back and tie it here. But I don't tend to wear my shawls that way. I feel like this is one that I'm probably going to end up gifting. I enjoyed knitting it. I enjoyed the color play, but I've sort of experienced that same kind of problem with this shape of shawl. I find that it's just too long width-wise unless it's very narrow, and then I feel more comfortable tying it up as a scarf. But as it is with this one, if I wear it kind of like a scarf, it just feels big and bulky on me. It's just not quite my style, but I think it's a lovely shawl. I definitely like the way the colors play. It's just one of those that's not right for me. I'll show you my picot edge there. So I ended up, I was knitting, and I think I was ready, realized I think I had gone past the point where I should have to bind off. So I think I had to pick back a row. And then I looked at how much yarn I had and I went, I don't think that's going to work so well. So I picked back again, started binding off, realized halfway through that I was not going to have enough to finish the bind off, took back another row, and then as you can see, I just barely had enough to do the bind off. But another one done. The other finished project I have this week is my Tulamine Mystery Shawl by Tabitha Hedrick. So if you do not want to see the spoiler, because I've finished it now, it would be all the way up to clue 5. Look away now and come back in a few minutes. Okay. This one I'm really, really, really happy with. I haven't blocked it yet. I only finished it last night. So the yarn I used was Sweet Georgia Yarns Tough Love Sock, and the main color is Sea Spray. The contrasting color one, which is the green, is a one-of-a-kind unique dye lot, they call it, that I got in a clearing out sale that Sweet Georgia was doing. And then the contrasting color 2 is Mirror Pond, and you can see it has this blue, tealy blue, and then also a couple of different shades of green in it along with the cream. When I showed it to you last week, I had finished clue 4 up to this point, just before this line of garter stitch, and so this was the final clue. Because I haven't blocked it, it's curling on me, but you can see that the final clue incorporated more of this lace, and then a final wide panel of lace, which I thought was really nice. And I altered the ending a little bit. You do a row of garter stitch with the contrasting color 2, and then they say to knit one row with with either the contrasting color 1 or the main color, and then bind off. But what I decided to do is I incorporated a row of the contrasting color 1, and then I did a row of the main color bound off. And I like the way those 3 rows of garter stitch just finish off that edge. This shawl started, if you have been watching, with a square. You knit round and round, and then you turn that square on its side. It created a diamond, and then knit out from there. So I'll give you a little look at how it goes, kind of in a arrow shape, I guess, almost. And then ends with that point here. I'll show it to you next week once I've bound off. So the wingspan on this one, let's see, I'm 5'3", so from tip, I haven't actually measured it, tip to tip is probably, there's my wingspan, and then plus a couple of feet. So it's pretty long, but it's a stole shape, and I can totally see myself just wrapping up in it this winter like this. I received, I think it was last year for Christmas, a commercially knit stole about this size, and I use it all the time on a cool winter morning. So I could definitely see just wrapping myself up in this in the morning or the evening while I sit and knit or watch TV or something. So yeah, extremely pleased with this one. I couldn't be happier, and I love the colors. I love everything about it. So, mysteries shawls or mystery knits in general, you never quite know what you're going to get. So I was very pleased with this. I think it would be fun to knit again and try some different color combinations. This is a mystery knit along for Sweet Georgia Yarns, and unfortunately I haven't actually participated in the knit along itself. I haven't posted any pictures or joined in any conversation or even really looked at other people's projects. It's kind of been a knit along all by myself, but nevertheless I've enjoyed watching this shawl unfold. And what I mentioned before, when I was finishing off Clue 3, I did not have enough to finish Clue 3. I didn't have enough of the main color to complete the shawl as written, but in a couple of different clues, the designer gave an alternate version that you could omit certain rows in order to make your yarn go farther. And what I did is I ended up knitting some of the rows that were suggested to be omitted and skipped the rest. That was here. That I knit this extra. I could have left it out. But I had just enough and a little bit in order to do that last row and bind off in the main color. So again, not a lot. I think maybe 3 meters, about 3 meters of yarn of that one left over. So definitely on those two projects, I was cutting it close. Plain yarn chicken. I feel very good. Carol 2, yarn chicken 0, or chicken, I guess, yarn 0. I don't know. Anyway, I'm really happy to have had enough to work those both as they came out. All right. Well, I guess technically I did run out of yarn on both, but as far as finishing off the bind-offs, I had enough for the alterations I'd done. It's kind of the Helen Stewart show this week. I'm just going to slide my thing over here. I have another Helen Stewart, actually 2 more Helen Stewart projects to show to you. First one is the latest shawl in the Shawl Society 3 called Learning to Cry. And it is a blend of garter stitch in a kind of a solid yarn and then striped with a mohair lace section. And it's an asymmetrical triangle, which is one of my very favorite shapes of shawls. So I did get a go on it, doing the main color in this Alpha, well I guess this doesn't really tell you, Alpha Bee yarn, Bee Luxe, or Luxe Bee I should say, in the Duchess de Brabant colorway. And I did a little Googling and learned that that is a type of rose, pink rose, that apparently Teddy Roosevelt was very fond of and would wear in his buttonhole. So don't you love Google? I love learning new things. Couldn't resist looking it up. So that's this yarn, and look what a gorgeous sheen it has. I think it's a 50 Yeah, 50% superwash merino, 50% silk. And I don't know if it comes across, but it has such a gorgeous, gorgeous sheen and beautiful feel to it. And then for my mohair sections, I'm using this color blocked, can't think of the right word to describe a yarn like this that has a progression of colors. And I guess it's self-striping, but it's a little bit more than that. It's almost a gradation anyway. I had used this for a prior project. I had an extra skein, and so I'm using it for this. This yarn is Katya Silk Mohair in the imaginative color of 701. So I did cheat a little bit. I got rid of some of the darkest color that was on the outside of the skein. Took that off before I started knitting because I did want to start with a certain shade of pink. And so I've gotten a fair bit done. Let's find the right direction. I think I'm about just over 20% finished. So again, a very basic garter stitch design, and it's broken up with this beautiful mohair lace. Very light, fluffy. And then got one more stripe of the mohair done there. You can see that one has a kind of a silvery gray with some of the pink mixed in. And then the next section is more or less just the silvery gray. So that should form the next stripe. So yeah, whoops, can't get hold of it. So yeah, that's coming along quite nicely. I'm happy with it. Now I know last week I showed a few different possibilities for this pattern, and I had eliminated a couple of them because of I didn't have enough yarn in the main color. And then I'm not sure why I thought I had enough in this one, because it's very clearly marked on the skein, on the label, the length of it. And I actually am short of what the pattern calls for. But I didn't realize that till I was partway into the knitting, and then I sort of thought, well, what difference does it make if I have to eliminate one skein of garter one section of garter, and then before I do the lace, so be it. It's not the end of the world if it ends up being a little bit shorter than planned. It will be plenty big enough to wear as a scarf, which is how I like to wear this style of shawl. So I'm just going to knit till I kind of run out of the main color, and then I'll make the stripe the right width. If I don't have enough of this yarn to do a complete stripe, then I will end it there, and then add one last section of lace. Whoops, that's backwards. To finish it. That's how the end is just a mohair border. So I'll do as many stripes as I can get away with. But yeah, very happy with that so far. Lace is not difficult, and it's kind of fun to have the sections of garter broken up by the lace, and also to switch out the yarns. That gives a totally different knitting experience than if it were all garter stitch. So definitely enjoying that one. And then haven't seen these in a while, but we got our yarn hint for the next pair of socks in the Handmade Sock Society by Helen Stewart, and so I thought I'd better pick up my current pair, which are the Honeybee Dance socks. You can see them there. I haven't worked on these for ages. The yarn I'm using is Black Cat Custom Yarn Everyday Sock in the Champagne colorway. This was a gift from my son. He gave me 1 month of their sock yarn club for Christmas last year, and this was January's colorway. And it is a beautiful tonal yellow, gold. And I think I have about one more pattern repeat to do before I start the toe. So I think I picked it up I think I've done 2 pattern repeats since I picked it up, and I'll just, as I generally do, shift this sock around so you can actually see the pattern kind of stretched out. Now I realized when I picked these back up, there you go. I realized when I picked these back up and I went to knit the first repeat that I've been doing this part wrong, the whole sock. You're supposed to alternate between having the cables go turn out, and they're supposed to go in and kind of to form a bit of a diamond shape here. Let's see if I bring it up close. And instead my cables are all going the same way out from the center. Or I guess I've been knitting them this way. So but, and I don't know if you can tell from the picture, it's a little bit tough to see. Maybe there you can tell how it's supposed to look. Oh well, I am not going back and ripping them out to fix that. No one but me, when I wear them, is going to know, and they're consistent throughout, so that's fine. So it's unfortunate because I do like to stay, true to the design, but that's just the way it is. I think they're just lovely the way they are. Just, yeah, I'm not taking back almost a whole sock just to switch that up. That brings me to what I'm reading this week. I completed By the Shores of Silver Lake by Laura Ingalls Wilder. I think I only had a few chapters left last week when I talked to you, and then I am into the next book in the series, The Long Winter, and you can see I'm about 3/4 of the way through that book. I remember when I read this as a kid, it seemed to last forever, as did The Long Winter. I mean, it's deliberately written to demonstrate the monotony of the storms that occurred in this particularly severe winter. The Ingalls family has just settled in the new town of De Smet, and there are about 100 people in town over the winter. The family moves in from their homestead because their claim shanty just can't support them in the colder, harsher temperatures. So they move into Pa's building in town and spend the winter there. And the trains get stuck. There are many, many blizzards, and as fast as they can dig out a train, new blizzard comes and blocks it in again. And the railroad just gave up, which meant that no trains were coming into town from about January to March or April. And so there were no new supplies coming into town. So the townspeople had to survive on what they had. In the Ingalls case, they were eating potatoes they had grown on their on their homestead. Wheat. They had flour, and then the flour ran out, and they were able to get a bag of wheat that they ground into flour, enough for a loaf for each meal, I believe it was. And they ran out of coal, in which case they were twisting hay into hay sticks to burn. And as I learned when I went to De Smet this past summer, they had an example of a hay stick. It actually looks a lot like, here, let me just grab this from behind me. It looks a lot like a skein of yarn, like this. It's hay that's basically twisted into a stick, probably not much bigger than this. And only takes 15 minutes to burn one of them up. So you can imagine in sub-zero temperatures and the winds howling and the snow flying, you would have needed many of them in order to keep warm. So the family basically closed themselves down to one small room to live in during the day, and then they all slept upstairs at night. So very long Hard Winter. She was going to call the book The Hard Winter, and I think that's how a lot of people had referred to it, but her publisher had her change it to The Long Winter, which is actually almost just as descriptive a title, because in the way it's written, it does feel like it's never going to end. So I have read the corresponding chapter in Pioneer Girl and learned ways in which the Ingalls' actual experience differed from their experience in the fictional book. And one main way it differed is they actually had a young couple with a new baby living with them during the winter. But in writing the fictional version, Laura insisted that she didn't want to include those people in the story. She wanted to highlight the family's struggle alone and, conquering this this challenge that they were under. So it's interesting, it's growing up. I always assumed that the books were basically, an echo, a true retelling of her actual life story. And it's interesting to learn how Laura took definite steps in her writing the novels that diverged from her actual experience. And her daughter Rose had quite a hand in the editing and planning of the books, and so some of the information is gleaned from letters back and forth between them. And that's how they know that Laura wanted to keep this other young family out of the fictional version. Oops, I just jiggled the camera. Sorry about that. Just drinking water. It's actually around lunchtime, so when I finish this, I roasted a chicken for dinner last night and made soup stock last night afterwards. So I'm going to make some soup for lunch. It smelled so good last night in here. Well, it smelled good while the chicken was cooking, and then when the soup was cooking, or simmering, it smelled so good. So I'm looking forward to lunch today. So that just leaves us with what's been going on here this week. I can't believe it's already almost the weekend again. It'll be Saturday tomorrow. It feels like it just was Saturday. Last Saturday we spent the day, or not the day, part of the day shopping for clothes for my husband. We are 2 weeks tomorrow. We're leaving for a cruise in Europe, in the Mediterranean. My husband's company every 2 years does a trip with their 25 and 35-year employees. And my husband will be actually 27 years in January, but just because of the timing of his anniversary date, he didn't go on the last trip because he wasn't quite 25 years. And he hadn't completed his 25th year, I guess is what it would have been. And anyway, so we are... the cruise starts in Barcelona. We're there for a couple of nights and then get on the ship and have a couple of stops in France, several in Italy, 2 in Croatia, and then we end in Venice. We have done some of these stops before, back in 2007, but we've not been to Croatia or Venice before. So I'm very excited about Venice in particular. It just seems like such an amazing city to see, and I'm really excited about going there. So we're kind of just freshening up my husband's wardrobe, not so much his daytime stuff, that's easy. It's just the things he needs for dinner. He has a suit and a sports jacket with a couple of pairs of pants, and so we got some new shirts and ties to freshen things up and mix and match and breathe some new life into his wardrobe, and also just to extend it a little bit so he has a lot more choices for how he can mix and match. So he's not a big fan of shopping, neither am I. but he only does this kind of stuff probably every 5 or 6 years, and so it was definitely due. A couple of his shirts were looking very tired, and so yeah, it went all right. We had a helpful person, and he tried on thing after thing, and I think we were all glad when it was done, but now he doesn't have to go again for another few years, so that's good. I still have to kind of go through some of my clothes, figure out what fits, what doesn't, and all that stuff, and so that'll be doing that over the next couple of weeks. Then Sunday we golfed in my husband's work golf tournament, which was actually, we weren't sure how the weather was going to be originally. The forecast was really good for Sunday, and then as it was approaching, it was looking worse and worse. And as it turned out, we did have some showers, but they didn't last too long, and then the sun came out a little bit towards the end. But just, it was comfortable enough. As long as it wasn't raining, it wasn't bad. Other than the course itself was really saturated because we had quite a bit of rain, so it was a lot of areas were quite squishy on the feet. And there was a lot of standing water, and we've golfed that course a number of times with his work, and we've never seen the ponds and creeks and things as high as they were. A lot of standing water, but had a good time. Yeah, we always do. So that was good. And then Monday night was my turn to host my group of women friends for our monthly, we call it ladies' night. And so I decided to, because the weather was better, we had it outside on our new deck, under the old deck. So it was covered. Not that it had to be, and we sat around the fire table, and the moon put on the greatest show. It came up behind the mountains with the full moon, harvest moon, and rose up in the sky. It was just beautiful. It was a lovely, lovely night. So that turned out well. And then my brother-in-law came and stayed with us night before last. He and his wife are moving back to Vancouver Island, so she's already there. She's a teacher, so she got a new position, so she's already there teaching, and he's been here packing things up, getting ready to move into their new house. So the movers came Wednesday, and so he didn't have a place to sleep. So he and his cats came and spent Wednesday night here, and then he left yesterday to move to his new home. I can't remember if they were getting in yesterday or getting into it today, but in any case, it looks beautiful from what I've seen on the internet. I think they'll be very happy there. And both my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law's mom, and my sister-in-law's mom is also on the island along with her sister, and both of her daughter and his son are there, and so most of their family is on Vancouver Island. They had planned to move back there after retirement anyway, and just with some circumstances, they upped that move by a couple of years. So wishing them well. The most exciting thing is not what happened last week, it's what's happening this weekend, and that is Knit City being held in Vancouver. It actually starts today with classes, and then the marketplace runs Saturday and Sunday, and then I think there are also classes on Monday. I'm not taking any classes. I'm going to drive in on Sunday with my daughter Jessica, and I'm going to meet viewer Susan there. We've been chatting back and forth online for a long time, so I'm excited to finally meet her in person. I'm going to drive in. I'm a little nervous about that. I know I've been driven in the city for quite a long time, but at least I know where I'm going. I'm usually not the one that drives there, but I'm sure I'll be fine. Jessica's a good navigator, and like I say, I am familiar with more or less how to get there, so should be fine. But yeah, I'm excited to see all the different vendors. I don't really have a big plan. There are a couple of places that I definitely want to check out. But mostly I'm just going without a plan, which might be a dangerous thing. But I don't have anything pressing on, oh, I really want to get yarn for this or for that. I'll probably spend a bit of today and maybe tomorrow, take a look at the vendors and see if there's anything in particular that catches my eye, or take a look at some patterns that are kind of in my radar or on my radar, and see if there's anything I might pick up for yarn there. We'll see. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, I'm excited to see some podcasters or designers that might be walking around. Marilyn in our group told me that Helen Stewart was going, and actually then she mentioned it in her newsletters. So she's just going as a participant, not as a teacher or anything. So I'm hoping to be able to see her and say hello. As you can tell from this show alone, I'm a fan of her work, and I would love to be able to meet her and tell her so myself. Other than that, just take it as it comes. Just excited to be able to go in and just drink up all that yarny atmosphere. I think that's it for this week. I can't think of anything else to add. So I am going to go get my soup cooking while the podcast, all the recordings download onto my computer, and then spend part of the afternoon editing and getting things up. So hopefully I'll be able to go spend a little bit of time outside this afternoon, because it is just gorgeous. Not a cloud in the sky, blue sky, and like I say, it's a little bit, it's windy. Actually, the wind started last night. I was doing dishes after dinner, and all of a sudden I heard the whoosh as the wind hit the house, and it was windy, quite windy last night. And when I went for my walk this morning, it was still windy, and it's still blowing out there, but not quite as hard. Anyway, that's besides the point. So have yourselves a wonderful week. If you happen to be going to Knit City and you see me and recognize me, please say hello. I would love to meet you. And one viewer asked me to please take some pictures and record. I will do my best. I'll take my camera with me, and I'll try and remember to pull it out sometimes. Sometimes when I get into the middle of any sort of, event, family event or whatever, all my good intentions go out the window and my camera stays away, and I just kind of experience it. But I will do my best to take at least a few pictures and share my experience with you on the next episode. So have yourselves a good week. Take care until then, and see you soon. Bye.